Hello, we're here at Island Beach State Park. This is Access 21, referred to sometimes as A21, which is at the southern end of the park. It is an area where we have some what we call natural dunes, historic dunes that go back in time from regular sand deposits. And one of the things that I'm going to point out today is called beach zonation. What are the different parts of the beach itself? If we look down, we can see the ocean. And if we do a panoramic, kind of come around, we can see the opposite side. And here is the other side of the dune. So this area right over here, this tall dune, is an area on the ocean called the foredune, or sometimes they call it the primary dune system. It's used there to kind of be the first line of defense and form a healthy ecosystem where we have a bunch of plants that are growing there. Two more dominant plants in this area are the American beach grass, which is a native plant, Ammophila reveligulata, and then we also have, and we can see it on this side a little bit, Carex kobomugi, which is the Asiatic sand sedge, a non-native part of the beach. But the dune itself is this community right over here, and it captures sand that kind of moves up the beach, and these plants do a good job in capturing that sand. And the American beach grass will capture that sand, and as the sand captures, it'll actually grow up through that sand and continue its cycle. So this part of the beach here is called the foredune, as I mentioned, and this area over here, as we go away from the foredune, I'm walking towards the ocean, we're at the toe of the dune. So the toe of the dune is the area that's just collecting sand at the base of the dune. A lot of times in our area, we have predominantly different sizes of sand. So if I pull up the sand, holding up to the camera, it's hard to see, but you would actually separate the sand out by using like screens called sieves that have different sizes, and you could break sand down into different size categories. Sand could be broken down into coarse sand, that's very large size. Then you can get into what they call your medium sands and then your fine sands. And fine sand can be broken down to even very fine sand. And then when that sand even gets broken down further, we start to get into other categories like silts and clays. But right now we're dealing with the sand, and at the base of the dune, as the wind brings the sand up, it's kind of moving that sand across and being captured here on the dune. So a lot of times on the dune, you can get some very fine sands kind of deposited because they're going to carry out long distance based on wind. If I keep moving down the beach here towards the ocean, we start to get to our mid-beach area over here. And we're at a very high tide today. We had a coastal storm that was sitting out all week offshore, and that coastal storm is just bringing more and more water because of the northeast winds towards the coastline, and right now we have pretty high waters. But this would be equal to your mid-beach area. And then what we have is what we call the backshore. So the backshore is an area that really doesn't get inundated very much with water that washes on. Right now we're seeing actually some signs of water washing out because of that coastal storm. So this is one of those rare times that our backshore area could actually get inundated with water. And what that does is it helps to bring sometimes more particles, but sadly enough, when it's high energy, it can actually wash out some more of the sand. So our beach composition here along this part of the coast is mostly medium sand. We are in the backshore area right now, and you get that nice mixture of medium and fine sands. And as we walk towards the breaking water, there's an area on the beach called the Foreshore. And the foreshore has with it a lot of materials, including broken shells that break down from that high energy. You can see those breaking waves that will constantly break the sand particles down. Because of the wave action, a lot of the sand that's harder to move is coarse sand. So you could actually see coarse sand deposits, which are those higher sand deposits, washing in and out of the breaking waves. And then eventually when you get this type of storm wave, we call this, or storm water that's coming up, that moves the sand up into the backshore area that's higher up, and I'm going to point towards that right now. that coarse material gets deposited up there from these episodes or events. It usually doesn't, because it's very difficult for the sand to be carried by wind unless it's a fine particle or even a medium under high wind conditions. But with these storm events, it helps to mobilize or move some of the coarser materials up on the beach. Sadly enough though, with these events, you also get deposits of marine debris that are out there as well, some of which include plastic containers, bottle caps, straws. So there's many examples of that. And right here is, you know, a plastic milk jug. Here's looks like a Mylar balloon. That's one of the more predominant types of things found in the coastal area, because people, you know, use those balloons for celebrations and so forth. But when they get into the water systems, they kind of break down and they look like available food to some of the wildlife that lives out there. They will ingest that thinking that they're jellyfish or some other sort of, you know, marine creature. So this is the dune back here. Here's your coastal ecosystem here. The sand plays a very big role. There's organisms that live in the sand. They're called myofauna. They live actually within the sand, things like sand crabs or mole crabs. But when you break down the different zones of the beach, you can actually find different sand particle sizes that are predominantly making up that sand or beach composition.